preparing to live stream the meeting, setting up your meeting for YouTube Live. It's getting there. It's working on done redirecting.
Mhm.
And once we get there, I will pause it so I don't get that weird echo effect. All right, there's that. You got sirens going on down there on Folly, Jackie boy.
Yeah, so, thank goodness it's just going from the station. Sometimes it starts way out at James Island, and we can hear it coming. Usually that's a heart attack, and they're
Mm.
coming all the way from James Island to that poor person down on 16th Street. That's going to take them 30 minutes to get to him. What did you say the other a while back? Where you're needed in seconds, they'll be there in minutes.
Yeah, when seconds counts, cops are only minutes away.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's it. That's yeah, yeah, that was it.
yeah, that was on one where I think I commented on an article where a homeowner shot an intruder or something like that.
Right.
And that
I
was
think I remember that.
sort of the quote that popped into my head. When seconds count, police are only minutes away. So, all right, let's see where I'm going here. There, I'm going to try and get a couple windows open to share with you as we get moving along. And where are we? 7:03. So it shouldn't be too long. We'll get started in a minute or two here. Oops, I know one thing I did forget to do is I forgot to send out a reminder to one of our other board members. Let's see if I can get that up here quick. I usually have a small list of people I send reminders out to this, and I completely
Who's
forgot.
back outside, baby?
Um, all right, I'll send out that one there. We'll give them a minute or two. And let me double check where was I here? Actions and emails. Okay, I have it open now. Kristen, sorry for the late reminder. I just sent it moments ago, and I forgot to remind a whole bunch of other people. So we'll just kind of play it by ear. And we did get our media posts out. We also got our newsletter out today. Went out, I think, late this morning. Um, Also in the newsletter was the reminder of our monthly normal chapter meeting, which will be on Tuesday at 7 p.m. right back here on Zoom. Different login code. Find that on our Facebook um, or email me at um, lowcountrynormal@gmail.com and ask for the link. All right, there we go. 7:05. We've got a couple of people on board with us now, and just got to hide that. We are going to start our meetings as we always do by first off welcoming everybody that's here with us this evening, and also welcoming any viewers that we may have that may happen to be viewing this on our YouTube channel after the fact, after the meeting ends. All of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness. They are not an open market for the sale, the purchase, or the distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. Again, welcome everybody. Um, I have a feeling Kristen must be reconnecting. Give her a minute here. While we're waiting for her, our main topic of discussion, if you happen to see our reminders posted, was very much the the same as last week. We are talking about our Smoke the Vote initiative with NORML National and here on South Carolina. Smoke the Vote is basically where you will find our candidate guide for each and every state individually, or I don't think you can do them in mass. You can do the state in mass, or you can punch in your um, address and get your specific legislators. Um, and also, we've added another database in there of candidates. So, candidates that are running right now in South Carolina, both at the state and the federal level. Um, we don't have it drilled down any further than that into sheriff's offices or school districts. Um, but those battles are also, or those races are also going on right now as we're getting close to our November election. Um, I just want a real quick check here. All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm just going to show you the login info, the first page on the Smoke the Vote. I can bring my browser down here and once. And the link that we've sent out in our email, and I'll share it in a few moments here on our chat window, where we're asking you to share a questionnaire with the candidates, or candidate questionnaire for South Carolina. Basically, we want to know their position on marijuana. So, what we would ask you to do is go to this link right up here. I don't think I can access chat from where I'm at. Oh, look, I can. And now let's see if I can access participants. I heard somebody come in. That one I don't see. Uh-oh. Okay, well, let me close this. That if you follow that link, and I'm going to have to stop real quick. Sorry about that, folks. Needed to let Kristen back in. I kind of figured it was her reconnecting. So if you go to the link that I shared in the chat, that's going to take you to this ask your legislators what their position on marijuana reform is. Voters want to know our legislators' position on marijuana law reform. Please ask your legislator to complete the normal questionnaire. And then we have a link over here that you'll see it in bright green where you can start writing your letter. We've had a couple of people participate. As I mentioned to Kristen earlier this morning, I have not got mine out yet, only because I've hit a lot of my local legislators and candidates repeatedly. But I will be doing it again. I just want to give them a little breathing room before I annoy them again, which I often do. You click that start writing button, and it will magically do nothing. There we go. Bring up my particular legislators. Now, when you log into the system, or it'll ask you your information. Um, we do have a couple of suggestions here when you're writing to your legislators. Please be polite and courteous. Add a personal comment or note. Um, and also then share your reason for why you're supporting cannabis. You'll see on mine, um, we have a list of who we're writing to. In my district, we actually have these. Uh, this was Pete McCoy's district here. These two, although Spencer Wetmore is considered the incumbent at the moment, lost her again. Um, for some reason she wasn't on our list as the incumbent, so we had to add her in. And you'll also notice on those two there isn't any of the additional drop downs that you might see on some of the other legislators, asking your prefix, um, asking your letter topic. Those I'm not sure exactly how to get those installed. So when you see them very simple like that, we had their email address, their basic contact info, but I don't know how these other drop downs are done. So uh, for some reason, also with Sandy Sen, I'm pretty sure she's in the database, but maybe she just didn't ask any additional drop down info. Same with Pete McCoy. And then you'll see down below our sample of the letter that you'll be sending off to your candidates and or legislators. Not or, it'll be both. Um, at least as far as we have the list completed, and I'll note on that in just a couple of moments. But you'll see here in the message it says, as you may know, marijuana question has become a major issue in the upcoming election. I'm interested in knowing your position on the subject, as this will help me determine how I will vote. NORML is compiling a voter guide to assist voters in their decision making process. And I give them the link to that guide. And I have, if you have not already done so, please complete, follow this link and complete the candidate questionnaire. And then I give them the candidate questionnaire down below. The system will automatically give them a, do your sir, do your ma'am, and that kind of thing. And then you would go ahead and send your letter out once you complete it. Or if you don't quite care for it or you want to add that personal touch, you can just click on in there and you can start typing away and add your personal comments to your legislators and or candidates. Um, all right. The other place I want to quick go here is the actual voter guide itself. You will go to vote.normal.org, and this is the main page as it pops up. Now you can at this point enter in your street address, city, state, zip, or 9-digit zip code. Your NZIP. You need the street and everything, or your 9-digit zip code. Your 9-digit zip code will pinpoint your pretty much exact location. So I have to look at this one here real quick. These would be my legislators, because this is my 9-digit zip. So if you know that, you can probably know exactly where I live. We have our our federal level here. We have our U.S. Senate, um, Jamie Harrison against Lindsey Graham, against Bill Bledsoe, against Keenan Dunham, against David Winkle. We do have some documentation and information on these candidates, so you'll see that they have a letter grade. They will have some highlighted tags basically on whether they are for jail time or whether they are for legalization or decriminalization. Good example, we'll click here on Lindsey Graham, who has been a legislator here in South Carolina for quite a while. Um, he has co sponsored some legislation. Therapeutic Hemp Medical Access Act of 2017, the CARES Act of 2015. Um, but then you'll see a variety of different comments. You'll see his voting record down here on a number of different subjects, on cannabis based subjects and bills. And I didn't give him the D grade, the D rating. That comes, there is I guess what they call a Rubik's that we're supposed to follow. And somebody else has graded him in that particular manner based on this Rubik's. If we back out of there, again, you'll come down. We see another good example. We have incumbent Joe Cunningham and uh, candidate Nancy Mace kind of battling for each other. Although they both have B ratings, Nancy's rating slightly lower with a minus. Um, again, for some of her comments and position on it, I'm not sure. Let's see how detailed we get with Nancy. she had. I think part of it is she co-sponsored an act, and it wasn't 3660 because that was the Compassionate Care Act. I thought one that she was proposing, I'd have to go back and find it, was a one basically for near near end of life final stage uh, usage. Yeah, I am getting the weirdest noises on this. Give me 1 second, folks. There's the button I wanted to see. Um, where I must admit the incumbent. Oh, that was Nancy Mance. I'm thinking the incumbent. Most of his has been leaning towards. He is on a veterans committee, and so although he's voted yes on Blumenauer, McClintock, the Norton Amendment, which is the one to basically not interfere with the legal states that have already legalized, and not to fund enforcement in those states. He's also yes on the Safe Banking Act. Um, he thinks that we should have medical marijuana at federal level, but much beyond that, as relates to recreational, that should be left up to states to decide. So, and we have a link here to a video that was in. I'm going to open that real quick because I don't remember what. I think that was a debate. Yep, C-SPAN congressional debate. I won't let that open all the way. Um, so he's just a little bit more open to more medical use than just end of life type things. Oh, went into another window that wasn't really. Um, Now I sidetracked myself because I closed a window that I'm not sure I wanted closed yet. But that was the voter guide there to give you a general idea. That's what it is. I didn't get very far on the voter guide. Um, as I go through my particular. I'm gonna have to do it again. List, you'll see, breaks down to um, each race that's in my particular area that I'll be voting on, and then you'll see this break here where it says your elected officials, and it just basically goes down the list on who my current elected officials are, um, so that I can basically, I guess, look up here and know what the difference between the incumbent and the candidate, the opposing candidate. Uh, so that is the smoke the vote voter guide. And as you go to the entire state guide, as you scroll down, we have a little more color on some of our federal races here. We know our incumbent's position on most of those at federal level. But once we start hitting our like state senate starts first, you'll see not a lot of information that we have. So that's why it's important that you, as our supporters, go out and use that letter from Action Network to contact. Let me go ahead and view that letter campaign again. Contact your legislators. They're going to be more likely to answer the questions on the questionnaire if it's coming from their own local candidate. If you are from their voting block, if you're registered to vote in their neighborhood, um, more so than they would coming from me as a mass email to all candidates and to all um, incumbents. Um, and that's why we've decided to try and do this. This is our first ever letter campaign, um, and we're hoping, as I mentioned to Kristen this morning, there's 46 counties. I'd like to see 46 people, one from each county, go ahead and send it. Um, it may take more. It may take, yeah, I mean, of course, 46, they probably could be concentrated all in Charleston. Um, but share this out with folks that you know in other parts of the state besides here in the Low Country. or if you know somebody in the Midlands or the Upstate, we're trying to share it out as well with some of the other advocacy groups that are in those areas. Cannabis Forward is, I think, still active up in the upstate. Um, and Columbia Normal. I'm not sure if they're going by Columbia Normal or Metro Normal, but they are somewhat active. We haven't seen them participating in our letter campaign yet or sharing it, but uh, they're not quite as active as we tend to be here in the Low Country. Uh, and also other groups, non-normal groups like the Compassionate Care Alliance. Jill Swing over there has been very gracious in sharing information about our cannabis conversations and what we're doing. Um, Let me go ahead and click this share a minute here. Um, and helping us actually move some of this forward. So the letter campaign is the first step, or the letter campaign with trying to get the candidates and the legislators to answer the questionnaire is kind of our first step focus. We mentioned it today in our normal newsletter that goes out once a month, usually on the Sunday before our monthly meeting. Um, so again, that's a reminder that Tuesday night is our monthly meeting. Um, and the next step is then to kind of follow up and aggregate all that information from those questionnaires into the voter guide, which brings up something I sort of reminded myself earlier I wanted to touch on. I did get an email from National that there is a South Carolina House 107 Libertarian candidate named Will Detmering III. And he basically wrote to National, and they copied me on it, and also to our political advisor, political chair at National. And I'm going to have to follow up with them because basically it says he wanted to be vetted by NORML for support of my stance in decriminalization and legalization of marijuana in the state of South Carolina. If elected, I was sponsoring a number of bills for medical and recreational use. Um, I went back to the smoke the vote, and I didn't see a District 107 House race. And so let me actually check it since it's refreshed from the other day when I looked yesterday. Um, no, he's still not on there. So I'll reach out to Justin at National and find out how that information gets aggregated over, how long it takes, if there's anything I can do to sort of help that. And then with that same point in mind, I'm probably going to reach out to this particular candidate and then some of the others that have actually shown support and ask them if they'd like to come in and talk about their position on these Sunday night cannabis conversations. Uh, Kind of an open forum sort of situation. I'll invite all candidates who want to come, pro or con. Um, and it's not going to necessarily be a forum. We'll kind of invite them, and if they come in on a weekly, or if they tell us they want to come in as a featured guest, we'll give them some dedicated FaceTime here. Um, but that's our kind of main goals right now as we're moving closer and closer to November. We're now less than 60 days away from the elections. Um, Again, that voter guide does not have nearly the information that we'd like to see. So again, we included it in our newsletter today. Chris and I have discussed that we will also get another email blast or two out in the next couple of days or next week or two. Um, and I'm hesitant on saying that because I really try not to use email a lot. I don't want to try and spam people that are on our newsletter list because it's mainly meant for the once a month newsletter and other event updates. Well, this is really kind of an important update, so we will utilize it, but we'll try not to annoy you too much. Um, just because, again, we want folks on our email list that maybe aren't attending here tonight to be aware of this letter campaign and to ask your candidates, what's your position Voters want to know. We, if we don't start asking our legislators and our candidates what their position is, and if we don't start making it really clear to them that this is an issue that we're concerned about, they're not going to be concerned about it. They're not going to really be pushing it without us pushing them. So, I'm counting on y'all to click on the link for the letter there, and let's see. Yeah, Kristen, I've noticed that you must be having some real internet problems tonight. I see you've been getting booted out and booted out there. Um, what else was I going to talk about? Well, that was the one. Is like that one candidate who wrote in from us from District 107. Um, Somehow or another, he must have heard about, and wanted an endorsement from NORML. Now, the way he phrased it in there that he wants to be vetted by, I'm not exactly sure how we vet per se, but I think the response would really be to see where he has a public statement on this issue, and that to us is vetting. Once become public, whether it's in a debate or whether it's on your website as an issue that you support or don't, because a lot of these I've been starting to see a lot of these candidates, and they will have a particular button or link saying the issues, and will take you to that segment of their page, and they'll talk about what they feel are the key issues. Some of them will talk specifically about marijuana and medical and decrim and criminal justice reform, kind of all in that under that same button. Um, and if you've been on here before, which many of you have, you'll know that I really believe that marijuana law reform is key to criminal justice reform. Um, it just criminalizing a behavior that is victimless crime is really not harmful. A lot of the law is based on outright lies and racism. Um, as I've said on here before, if we can get our government to like tear down these statues, to why can't we get them to just annul these laws that are just as racist or built on the same racism? Um, but that's not how legislation and laws don't work necessarily. Uh, Not that I've seen. I mean, I can. Could you imagine if they would just go, uh, Controlled Substances Act, repeal it? Yeah. But if you know much of the history of it, and although I was very young when it happened, I've kind of learned that I lived through these stages of Timothy Leary proving in the Supreme Court that the 1937 Stamp Act was unconstitutional, and Richard Nixon then scrambling to come up with some other way to control drugs and marijuana, especially because that's what the Supreme Court your ruling was based on. Um, but and that's where again we come up with the Controlled Substances Act. And many of you may not know because it wasn't spoken about a lot, but it was mandatory that there was a 2-year study done on marijuana by what's now known as the Schaefer Commission. And 2 years later, they came back and they said to the then president, we really should just decriminalize this marijuana stuff and take it off the schedule. And he blew up and went, "You're crazy. What's wrong with you?" That's my lame Nixon impression at the moment. and uh, and if you do a little googling on it, it gets a little more dramatic and a lot more racist and bigoted than that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he was quite the bigoted president, um, and apparently, I don't know. Did he forget he put the taping system in the White House? Um, but I digress. Um, but that's what's going on with our Smoke the Vote initiative right now with our questionnaire. Again, that's the phase one. Get that questionnaire out there to the candidates, to the legislators that are incumbents, but to all the candidates basically. Um, so if in your particular area of the state you know of a candidate that has and that you know their position, that's one thing I really didn't talk about. I'm going to really quick share this because I kind of should have shared it before. Click on the right button. go ahead and get the share screen. If you happen to know the position of a candidate that's on the list, here we've got two. I don't know either of these. House District 12. Right next to the candidate's name, it says, "Know this candidate's position on marijuana? Tell us." And all you do is click on that little button, that little phrase, and it will take you to this page that says, "Tell us about Daniel Brownstein," or whatever candidate it is.
Mm.
And then it will ask you to, fill out the form and tell us about this politician's positions. Changes or additions must be sourced, and the link to the source must be included below. And that's where I mentioned before is if they've publicized it somewhere on a website, if it is on as I showed you the other link earlier, a debate that was publicized, that it's in that video somewhere, that we know their position, include that link down here in our sources and additional info section. But then the top section is really just sort of a checkbox. Do they want legalized, tax, and regulate marijuana, or allow it for medical use, or decriminalize, or jail time, or they oppose medical use? So those are the options that they have. This is very similar to the options that they'll have on the questionnaire. I think they're the same, to be quite honest with you. Um, you can, I guess, give them a rating, but we will generally go back and adjust the rating based on a rubric. Um, don't want to give everybody an A. Actually, you have to be federal level to even get an A because it's sponsoring federal level legislation, I believe. Um, and then, of course, your email address so we can either follow up with you and then hit the submit button. That way, because, and I see it from the back end quite often on this, is there are people in segments of the state that know their legislators or know their candidates, or it's the candidate themselves maybe that can come in. And if they don't get the questionnaire, they can still come in and they can fill in this segment and confirm their own sourcing right here in in the comment section. So that is our main push for the next. I'm going to say 2 weeks at least till we get toward the end of September. Is to really kind of push and share this link, get that questionnaire to our legislators. As I went through, you might find some folks as you're going through and following this link that you know of candidates and they're not on the list. Well, if I couldn't find an email address for them, they didn't get on the list. What I would then try to do is find their Facebook page or uh, a, a contact me page on their website if they had one, and send them the request to fill out the questionnaire. So they may not be in your letter, but you can still find them. Many of them, anyway. There were a few. All I could find was a personal Facebook page, and then there was a few that I couldn't find anything on them. And I'd source ballottopia.com, I think it is, and I went to the voter registration list, and that doesn't give me email addresses for them or even really much contact info. I think it gives me a zip code on where they registered at. Um, so there were a few of the candidates I couldn't even find. All the incumbents are on because they're already plugged in by national. Um, Although I have to contact National because there was one House seat, there was a race, and it wasn't even listed on the voter guide. So we're working on that. That is our main drive, is to get that up and running, so that by the time we turn into early October, we can clean up the list, finalize our search efforts onto the questionnaire, and go into filling in the voter guide, so that as we near the end of October, that becomes complete, hopefully pretty accurate, and voters can then access that and have it help them make their decision for the uh, November 3rd elections. Um, I did happen to take notice that are in a presidential year, but it only has congressional and state level. It doesn't have the presidents. So you'll have to watch our Facebook page or our other social media, Nationals website at norml.org, and they will keep you up to date on the presidential source opinions, if there are any. I think where we're at this point, as far as the presidential elections and campaigns, is neither of the parties are really acknowledging marijuana as an issue on their campaign trails. And so um, that's kind of, I guess, the official statement or position on them. They're just not acknowledging it as a campaign issue. Um, but beyond that, that's about all I have for the night on the smoke the vote. Like I say, once we get that list cleared up, we will then be asking you to promote that to voters that are interested in the issue, that are issue voters. There are certain races where you'll have both sides of the aisle as claiming to be supporters. A good example is Beaufort County. We have Tom Davis, and I'm not sure who he's running against. I'd have to go look. Um, did I turn off share again? I think I did. Um, and we know Tom Davis has been an advocate for medical marijuana, although we know his bill has been very, how's he put it, the most strict in the nation or something like that. Um, not quite the end of life thing that I mentioned earlier, but um, very restrictive on qualifying conditions. There's also some other, I think, harmful language in there. One of them that can increase fines and I believe penalty times to uh, people that may make a misstatement about their eligibility or their medical card status. Uh, the example I like to use is their segment in there where uh, it's open to interpretation, where uh, a someone on the street could say, "Hey, man, it's just my medicine," and the arresting officer can construe that as them claiming to be a medical card carrying registered patient in the state of South Carolina and lying about it, and that and because of that, there would then be increased fines and penalties. Um, and to me, that's just not a real it's more harmful language. It's things we're also trying to prevent. We're trying to prevent simple arrest for simple possession or arrest for simple possession. And also, as many of you know, we don't like the language in there that gives 50%, 50% of all the tax revenue generated from the program to law enforcement, to SLED and the 46 county sheriff's offices, when it could be much better spent on going to other social services and back into our community and other methods. Uh, that's my ramble on that. Oh, but then again, I don't want to kind of cut that too short. We do know that Tom has been a motorcycles running by a long term, long time. I think it's going on 6 years now that they've been working on the Compassionate Care Act. Um, and because of that, he's got a certain momentum, I would say, is kind of the best way to phrase it. And if the Democrat that also claims to support and may even support more liberally um, was elected, and we don't know if that particular candidate would then have the same momentum behind them. Obviously, if they're uh, someone who hasn't been a legislator before, and they're a freshman legislator, they wouldn't have that same momentum. Um, could they still sponsor bills? Absolutely. Um, but that's one of the things we've talked about in here once or twice before. Is it's not a matter of getting a legislator to sponsor the bills for us as much, or get bills sponsored as much as it is to get legislators that can garner. support around them to sponsor these bills. Because that's the only way they go forward. There's more decrim bills I saw last session. Uh, I guess they're still out there that had one sponsor, no co-sponsors. I think at one point finally those sponsors all kind of co-signed onto one of the other uh, decrim bills, and that one now has three or four co-sponsors on it. Um, but otherwise, it's really going nowhere. It's uh, uh, something we know we need to support and promote more as our new cycle comes around. And hopefully we can find some legislators that are part of, okay, I'm going to say it, the South Carolina Good Old Boy Group, and sign on to these bills and co-sponsor or help sponsor these bills. Um, I don't care what side of the aisle it is. I'm an issue voter for the most part. And my issue, as you all know, is cannabis. If you don't support changing laws on cannabis, I have a hard time supporting you, no matter what side of the aisle you're sitting on. So there, I said it. uh, so that's why again we're doing what we're doing with the voter guide. Last cycle we were just way too new. The last presidential cycle, especially, uh, that would have been 2016. I don't even think we were officially organized in 2016. I think we started January 2017 officially. Anyway, so Lowcountry NORML was still in its infancy, and at the election 2 years ago, um, again, we just were not staffed well enough or knowledgeable enough to really kind of assist in getting this moving. Um, Now we are. Now I'm a little bit more knowledgeable on it. I actually even work the polls now. It's kind of educational for me. Doesn't make you a lot of money, but lets you see the process. And I'm kind of intimidated looking forward to the November election because I'm told that we are just going to be inundated, and I believe it, with voters coming in. If you haven't and want to do mail-in absentee voting, I think you can still actually I know you can still request South Carolina your absentee vote. South Carolina is one of the few states, or I think the only state, that actually has a number of questions that says, why do you want one of these? I'm sick, I can't leave the house, I'm going to be out of town, whatever it might be. Um, my answer on it, I have to get an absentee ballot because I'm working in a precinct that's not the one I'm allowed to vote in. So I actually have to do a mail-in vote, um, because I can't just get up and leave the poll to go over to my poll and vote. Um, but it's an interesting process. Also, if you're not registered to vote, you have until 30 days prior to the election. So probably like, October 2nd was probably about your last day to register to vote. Um, if you're going to be 18 years old by the election date, you are eligible to register to vote. And if you need to vote or if you want to verify your voting registration, go to scvotes.org. No, I lie. .gov. scvotes.gov. And you can key in your information and double check that you're registered. And or if you're not registered, go ahead and register. Um, there is, I think, a part where they need to see ID. I forget how they work that. Be- because I know I got mine when I was getting my driver's license, and they have you there at the DMV. They already know who you are now. They're giving you the ID. So that's when I originally registered to vote. But I think at some point you do have to show. If you do it, I think online without showing your showing ID, you are then listed at the precinct at the poll that you would vote at as needs to show ID, and then it's just checked there right on voting day. They just kind of look at you, ask you to pull your mask down nowadays to make sure it's you. Check your excuse me, driver's license or state issued ID. Your I think military ID, your concealed carry permit is valid in South Carolina. Um, I think those are the main ones.
Mm.
So it's a photo ID, driver's license, state issued a photo ID, military ID, or concealed carry permit. There might be another one, but I'm not sure. uh, anyway, I'm a little late on that. I just saw Joey's comment, but hello, Joey. How you doing? Uh, I am going to actually open up the floor right now. If anybody has anything you want to talk about instead of me, I've already rambled your ear off for 45 minutes here, uh, just about this program. Does anybody have any thoughts, any insight, any good ideas on how we can share the questionnaire or people to invite to our conversation? Like I say, I'm going to start reaching out to some of these candidates that I've seen them respond to us and see if they want to come out and chat with us a little bit. Um, but otherwise, if anybody wants to unmute yourself and kind of throw in a little bit of info, Kristen, you're probably trying and it won't let you. I don't know. I'm teasing. It's really been giving you a hard time tonight. Um, Jackie boy, you still there?
I'm right here, buddy. It's
Oh,
getting
okay.
dark. It's getting dark out here.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. We're a little past sunset. All right. Well, if nobody's got a whole lot other input, I don't have again a dedicated guest next week. I am sorry about that. My push may again be talking about what's going on with this stuff if we have to, just because again the election's coming up soon. But I will be reaching out this week to a couple of people. Uh, Candidates, and of course, I keep saying I'm going to reach out to Johnny McCoy, the attorney up in Myrtle Beach, who's pushing a decrim ordinance up there, but I haven't really reached out to him with a formal request again. So I will do those things this week before we see you guys next week. Um, Otherwise, keep an eye out on us on Facebook. We do still post also on our Instagram and Twitter, although I'm more active on the Facebook. If you want to email us, the email address is lowcountrynormal, that's NORML, at gmail.com, or visit our website at normalsc.org. Otherwise, Tuesday, 7 p.m., double check our Facebook event page for the link for our monthly meeting. And otherwise, I'll see y'all back here next Sunday, 7 p.m. Um, and we'll talk a little bit more about cannabis in South Carolina. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate you taking the time. Bye bye now.
Bye now.